we met Nicky Johnston, who talked to us about her condition with anxiety. Nicky's also the mother of 4 boys, one of whom is also battling his own worries. Nicky, when did you first notice symptoms in your son?
My little worrier is my eldest son, and I actually think I could see things in him from birth. Well, just after birth. However, I was suffering postnatal depression as well, so I don't know if it was him copying my cues and my reactions to things, but predominantly it became apparent probably around 3 or 4 when he was in kinder. Being first child, I had no idea what children were supposed to be like, or that they're supposed to be laughing all the time and happy and everything else.
You have nothing to compare
Exactly. So when we went to kinder, I was able to see other kids his own age and actually see significant differences. And I think I could understand what he was feeling and how he was thinking, purely because that's exactly how I was at that age, as a young child as well.
How did that impact your own anxiety, recognising that you had a child with anxiety and then having to deal with your feelings as a parent?
Yes, well, I did carry that good old mother guilt.
As we do.
For a long time. Look, I think it heightened my levels of anxiety because all I wanted to know was, what do I do to help him? So he was 5 before he was actually diagnosed, and he was diagnosed with generalised anxiety disorder. And it became a disorder because it affected his world, where he couldn't function happily or freely. So once he went to school, I could see another massive trigger point, and it really affected our life as a family as well.
And so what you knew then, when you saw your son, you actually knew that it was more than just the regular anxiety that other children, because lots of children have trouble going to school at first.
Oh, absolutely.
But you knew that there was actually more to the story.
Because, what happened with him was he would be worrying about one thing, and so we would deal with that issue, and then it would be something else, and we'd deal with that, and then it was something else. And in the end, he was finding things to replace, to worry about. It was like the worrying action overtook his life, and he couldn't not exist without a worry thought.
So what did you end up doing to help him?
Well, I went in search of information because I wanted to know myself, how do I help a child? Now, there were lots of books, really helpful books for me as a parent to help a child, but I went in search for children's books to help him, and actually couldn't find. Well, I found one, but it was about a girl.
Yes.
So boys will read about boys, and girls will read about boys. So he wouldn't read about girls.
Yeah.
So I actually wrote him my own story for him, and where we used an externalization technique to label his worry thoughts, just to so it wasn't himself telling himself things. And he came up with the name Mr. Worry Thoughts. So I actually wrote him a story, which then eventually became a real children's book.
And I really love your story, actually, Nicky, because you used those talents that made you feel so different all those years ago in your anxiety, moments. But that's such an inspiring story, that you used what you had and you didn't let it get the better of you, and you've actually done a lot of work to help others.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think for my son, I wrote the story for him, so it was about him, for him, and it was for him to take to school so that the other kids could understand why he would freak out at certain things and struggle to go on excursions and things like that. And the teachers picked up on it and were like, oh, can we? And initially when I wrote it was just in a display folder, so it was just like one sort of printed out book with my pictures. I did pictures as well, and the school psychologist was like, oh, can I just borrow that for another child in grade 1? And I'll show that to some other parents. And so it became apparent that not only was it there to help my son, but it was actually able to help other people. So consequently then I went on to publish the book, which of course is Go Away Mr. Worry Thoughts.
Yes, I suppose.
Yes, so this is the first one, Go Away Mr. Worry Thoughts. And the second book is Happy Thoughts Are Everywhere, which is sort of the continuum for it. And of course now what's happening is that there are so many parents searching for books that this is becoming a bit of a legendary piece that's helping thousands of little warriors everywhere.
I must say that these books are actually in my office as well, so lots of the children go through these too, just to see that they aren't the only ones. Because one of the things with anxiety that we may not have mentioned earlier is that sense of, I'm the only one that feels this way. And having books written about the story for children is just incredibly beneficial.
I actually have been sent emails and notes, like little thank you cards from children saying, you wrote that story about me. I can't believe that your son is just like me. If he can do it, if he can beat Mr. Worrythoughts, I can. And it's very empowering.
It is empowering. And one of the things too, which you may all like to know, all of you at least in Melbourne, but I don't know if it'll end up going anywhere else, is that there's actually a stage production now of The Glow and Mr. Worrythoughts.
Which is touring primary schools. So it's sort of helping primary school teachers empower the children at the schools.
So that's great. Thank you for your contribution to families with anxiety and using your experiences with the illness to make other families' journey a little bit easier. So I'd like to thank Nicky Johnston very much for being here. So